Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1291, Postage Pop-Up, and you can check out all of our designs at karenburniston.com. All right, looking at the packaging here for the Postage Pop-Up, you can see that there are 15 pieces in this set, so you're going to get a lot of decorator pieces that you'll probably use even when you're not using this particular pop-up. So looking at the card on the packaging, you can see that you really have the pieces to be able to decorate the front of the card as well. And then a very cool pole box pop-up, super generic, to go underneath that postal frame inside. Okay, so when I say generic, I mean it. It really is just the simplest little pole box pop-up, and it will fit in a pretty small card. So what's really going to set your card size is more about what you're putting on it. You can make top fold cards, whichever way you want to do it. You can do side fold cards, having them on either side of the fold, or if you want to, even on both sides of the fold. So lots of possibilities with this very cool, simple pole box pop-up. So lately with assembly videos, I've taken to just copying myself. So I'll take the card that I made for the packaging and make a new version of that card with some different colors. And that's what I'm going to be doing in this video as well. So I'm going to make a 5x5 square card. And I've started with a piece of cardstock 10 inches wide by 5 inches tall and scored it in the center for folding. And then I just went stash diving to find some pretty pattern paper. So I found this beautiful floral paper from Simple Stories. Then I found a little teal pattern paper that seemed to match the colors in that. And so I just added some panels of paper and some stripes to the inside and the front of the card. I recommend lightweight for the pop-up on this one. You definitely don't need to use heavyweight cardstock on this. You can just use light stuff, or even double-sided pattern paper would probably be fine. So there are score lines in the pieces. They're all going to be mountain folds, which means you're folding away from yourself. I always find it a little easier to break that fold by folding towards myself first, and then I immediately reverse it. Now out here on the end where there are two tabs, just take note of where the score lines are. They are not even with that cutout there. See, they're a little bit up from there. And then one more score line a little bit down the piece, and that's what basically creates the box. So this is the box that is going to get pulled up by the pole arm. Okay, now switching to the pole arm, there is only one score line in the piece. It's out here by the tapered tab. It will be a mountain fold. The other end of the pole arm is notched, and then that is going to go through the slot on the box from the inside of the box. And you should be able to just wiggle it through, so you shouldn't need to fold anything. If you find that it wants to pull out again, just take the ends and fold them kind of opposite, just bend them down a little bit so that you get a good lock between those pieces. The pole arm is going to come through the box between the two small tabs, and then it's going to be the tapered tab on the pole arm that's going to get glued down inside the card. And since I want my box to pop up on the right side of the card, I'm going to install the tapered tab on the left. So I'll start with a strong glue. I'm using LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We sell both of those items on our website. So a strong glue to the tapered tab, then I flip the piece over. I can choose anywhere along the fold, but I'm going to just pretty much center it. And I want the end of the tapered tab to be jammed right up into the fold of the card. And that's why I've got that right side lifted, so that I don't cross the fold, but that I come right up into the fold of the card. All right, so now I'm going to work on the flat position for the box side. So for that, I want to have the two small tabs folded forward. Okay, so these two small tabs here folded forward. And then on this end, I need to have both panels showing, meaning I can see the tapered tab and I can see the panel next to it where the pole arm has come through it. So let me show you the difference. If I only had the tapered tab folded forward, that would not be correct. Okay, so out here, the two small tabs is just the tabs. But on the left-hand side, it's the tab and the next panel that both have to be forward. So that's the flat position for the box. And I'll take just a second to make sure everything looks straight, because there's a little bit of wiggle room, with that pop-up. So just make sure that everything looks straight, that the pole arm is balanced between the small tabs. It's not just kind of jammed up against one of the tabs, that you have just a little bit of clearance between them. And then I'm going to add my strong adhesive to those three tabs. Now I keep everything nice and flat while I close the right side of the card against the exposed adhesive. And it's going to pick up those three tabs in exactly the correct position so that I know that it will fold flat. The first time I open it, I like to just let it open a little bit on its own and take a look-see. Do all three of those tabs look like they're starting to set up? And then I'll just grab a fold of the box and kind of help it open that first time so that it doesn't just pull the tapered tab off. And then I'm going to give everything a really good press in that open position and make sure that everything is nicely secured. That is it. Look how easy that pop-up is. So easy. And look at how generic it is. And it can go anywhere along the fold. You can put multiples. You can put one on the right and one on the left, whatever you want to do. All right, let's talk about decorator pieces. Now, this is a great chance to just go to your scrap bin. Most of those pieces are very small. On the big piece, the one that has the 4 postage stamps, those are all kind of perforated and kept together. You can rotate that to be whatever orientation you want. I've decided to have the big square in the upper left. You have 4 dies to decorate those panels that are smaller, than the postage stamp. The 2 rectangles are the same size, but you get both dies. Like, in other words, you can cut all that at one time because you have both of the rectangle dies in the set. But one of them is going to be oriented horizontally and one is going to be oriented vertically. So think of that if you have directional paper. The other thing you can do with those decorator dies is you can nest them inside the postal frame die and cut out a postal frame window that you're then going to perhaps fill with a larger item behind it. So there's lots of ways to get cool effects with these dies. For this card, I'm gluing the panels over the top, and I haven't yet cut the big square because I want to stamp it first. So we have a new clear stamp set called Special Delivery that I did design to kind of go with the postage pop-up. So the greetings on that set are sized to work nicely with this die set. Of course, you can just use it on its own. They are high quality photopolymer stamps, so you're going to get a good image even just using an acrylic block, although you can certainly use your stamp positioner. If you were using your stamp positioner, then you probably could have die cut first if you prefer, but it's pretty easy since that is a nice big open square die to just line it up around the greeting and cut it afterwards. Although I would say using some temporary removable tape to make sure that the die doesn't slide is a good idea. Now with all of our dies, you can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die and is at least big enough for the die you're trying to cut. So I'm using my little Platinum Scout, Spellbinder's Platinum Scout, because I'm just cutting decorator pieces here, so that small machine is perfect for that. I tried to think of good little decorator pieces that would go with a postal theme, and I like the idea of a paper airplane. So the paper airplane die has 2 score lines in it so that you can make it a 3D paper airplane. So the top one is going to fold as a valley fold, and then the next one is going to fold as a mountain fold. But again, I'm always a fan of valley first and then reverse for the mountains. I just think it's easier to fold on the lines when you can see them, easier to break the fold towards yourself. So valley mountain, so a little accordion fold in there, and then you will have that little 3D paper airplane, okay? And then if you would like to have it have like that swirly-do kind of like flight line, then a little adhesive down in the fold and then put the end of the swirly-do, which in this case I just cut it out of like a silver mirror card out of my scrap bin so that it would be nice and shiny. And then now that swirly-do will actually hold the plane up, so you can have that flying up off into the air, really wherever you want it. And I will only use adhesive behind the swirl itself so that I can have that plane hanging off of the pop-up and flying in the air. Next up, I'm going to make a winged heart. So I'm going to start with the heart die. That's pretty straightforward. I just used some leftover pattern paper, added some clear packaging tape to it so that I would have a shiny heart. The wings are on the same die. And I think what you'll find with those wings is they are great to use on all sorts of things. So within this set, you could definitely use them on the letter so that you could have kind of an airmail look to the letter. But outside of this set, think of all of our little animal dies and how cute they would look with wings. For this card, I brushed just a little bit of gray ink around the wings so that they would stand out a little bit when they're next to the white postal frame. And then I'm just using some glue to attach them behind the heart. I like to add some small pop dots behind the wings, but then I glue the heart down flat, and then that will give me kind of that lift underneath the wings. And I've decided just to put it here on the bottom panel of my postal frame. The next embellishment I'll work on will be the little 2-part envelope, so the flap and the rectangle cut at the same time on the same die. And then I'm going to brush a little bit of gray ink around the flap to give it some contrast, and then I'll just glue that to the rectangle. Now you'll notice on the die that the flap ejection hole looks like a little butterfly. And if you pounce through that stencil, you can get a butterfly on the flap of your envelope that you've just stenciled on. Or if you would like it to have more of a 3D effect, there's actually a tiny butterfly die in the set. So I cut that out of glitter paper with double-sided adhesive on the back so that it would already be a sticker. And then I have that cute little butterfly on the flap of my envelope. But like I said, if you like the butterfly look, you can also do it with stencil. And then there is a die that will cut some cancellation lines. So I like to layer those kind of over the top of each other. I'm deviating a little bit from my inspiration card in this panel. On the inspiration card, I actually layered 2 envelopes and then the cancellation lines, but then I realized you really couldn't see very much of the pattern paper, and I really liked that red pattern paper, so I decided just to use 1 letter and the cancellation lines on this one. Okay, back to that stamp set again, and this time I'm going to use the Sending Love Across the Miles. Now that stamps in a single line, and that is sized to cut out perfectly using the fishtail banner out of our Lorna label pop-up. It would also be easy to cut out that Sending Love Across the Miles using your trimmer and then just fishtail the ends with scissors. That stamp set has 2 greetings that work well with the fishtail banner, so Sending Love Across the Miles or Flying By with a Birthday High. And if you wanted to keep it intact, you could use it across the center of the postal frame. In my case, I've decided to trim it into 2 pieces, brush a little bit of that same gray ink around the edges, and then I'll just layer those pieces in my upper right panel. And then the only die in the set I haven't used yet is the larger butterfly, so I've used white glitter paper with some double-sided adhesive on the back, and that's going to finish out the decor of my postal frame. Okay, so if you remember, I did a 5x5 square card, and what that means is I have a little bit of wiggle room as far as where this goes. I don't want to go too far to the left because it'll start to kind of creak and bend it as it closes, but if you leave a little bit of space between the end of the pole arm and the start of your postal frame, it will be fine. Now I'm going to use my glue all over the top of the pop-up and then choose my location. And then what's nice about using glue is I do have a chance to close the card and make sure that I haven't accidentally placed it, too far up or too far to the right to where things are sticking out of the card in the closed position. So I can give that a quick check. Now you can use the postal pop-up in an A2 size card. So 4 1/4 on the width is probably about your minimum if you're using that postal frame on top. You probably won't be able to have things hanging off the right side of your postal frame if you're using an A2 size card, but you can definitely make the card with the pop-up in an A2. The stamps are connected in a few places throughout the perforation, so if you want to separate them into individual stamps to use, you can really just do that by tearing them apart. Now, if you really wanted it to, not have any fuzzies or anything, you could go in there with your craft knife or scissors and snip all of the connection points. But I find if you just bend it, it's really easy just to tear them apart. So now I'm going to decorate some individual stamps for the background of my card. And I wanted to show on the paper airplane that if you want to reverse the way that it flies, just die cut it from the underside of the paper, and then you're still going to do the same valley mountain with, the side you want up, and then that will reverse it. So if you got pattern paper, cut it from underneath the paper, and that will reverse the direction of the paper airplane. So as I do the decoration of these individual stamps, let me tell you why the frame itself with the 4 stamps connected together is very user-friendly. So it creates the perforation on each stamp with a continuous perforation line. And the reason that that is user-friendly is because the other way to make perforation between the stamps would be to put a series of circles between the stamps, and then when you cut through the middle of the circles, then you get a cool perforation on both stamps. So that's great, it gives you an excellent look, but on the die cutting side, you then end up with a lot of individual holes in the die that all have to be ejected, if not between every cut, then, every few cuts. So if you have ever been in a position where you're trying to do a bunch of holiday cards or invitations, or you're teaching a class or a make and take, and you need to really be able to die cut, eject your paper, move to the next one, something assembly line, then you're really going to like this particular postal frame because it does have that continuous perforation and it doesn't create extra confetti on the die cutting side. So all I have done to finish out the interior of my card is to decorate some individual stamps by tearing them apart on the perforation line and then using the same decorator items that come included in the set. Okay, for the front of the card, I'm pretty much just going to copy the inspiration card with one change. On the inspiration card, I used this special delivery stamp from the stamp set and then the cancellation lines, but I decided on this one I would use the air mail and the cancellation lines. So, little piece of trivia for the people that collect the brand, do you recognize the shape of that airplane on the airmail stamp? And if you do, you are probably thinking of the little die-cut airplane out of the purse pop-up, which also does a suitcase. So that stamp, that airmail stamp, will go great with that suitcase as well. For a greeting on the front, I am using our Congrats die out of Word Set 8 Congrats, and I've cut that out of 2 colors and then glued them together slightly offset for a little drop shadow. And then finishing out my postal collage with another winged heart. The postal frame itself is about 3 3/8 of an inch square. So if you've got a situation like I have here where it's tone on tone, all I have to do is take my trimmer and cut a square that's 3.5 inches to give myself that nice little contrast along the outside edges. Then I just glue that to the front and my card is finished. So this one is a 5x5 square card. I can use an A7 rectangular envelope to mail it though. And what's so lovely about this style of card is that it is completely generic. So however you decorate your postage stamps is completely up to you. You can use this die set year round. You can use that pull box pop-up and animate anything with it, so it doesn't even always have to have the postal frame on top. And explore those other ideas, like nesting in the decorator dies into the frame and cutting them at the same time. And then you'll have those open areas where you can frame a larger item. So in this case, our new poinsettia die, and then in the other one, our new snow charms. Depending on when you are watching this video, there may still be time for you to join our November 2024 Zoom class that does feature the postage pop-up. So you will always find information about our classes on our website, KarenBurniston.com, on the Events tab. I love to end assembly videos with some inspiration by our very talented design team. Here's an adorable Christmas card by Sandy Diller. Inside she has the postage pop-up and it's decorated with some small little die-cut elements. Here's a card by Lois that is A2 sized, so you can absolutely use the postage pop-up in an A2 size card. Now something Lois has been doing with this die, which I really like, is sponging through the frame die with ink to get a larger surface area to decorate for postage stamps. So you can see inside this one, she didn't even use the decorator pieces. I love this Happy Thanksgiving card by Sandy Diller. She's looked through the animal dies, the charms, the borders to find all sorts of little pieces to create her Thanksgiving scene. So once you pop up one of those boxes, you technically have created a card fold on the other side of it, and that can be used to animate a second pop-up. So that's what Sue Small-Kreider has done here. She has chained those box pop-ups together so that she has 4 of them to spell out baby. For this card, Ken has put several postage pop-ups inside and then also added a rockin' rectangle in the lower right corner. Jen Webster made a couple of different beautiful baby cards using the postage pop-up, and on this one it's a window card, so she used those decorator dies to cut windows in the front of the card that would line up with the pop-up when it's closed. Beautiful colors on this tea-themed postage pop-up by Suzanne Smith. On this one, Nikki's used the mechanism to pop up something different, so in this case, a basket full of poinsettias. Here's a great example by Frances. She's got a fun shaped card and had just enough room inside to add a postage pop-up to animate the greeting. Ken is mixing the postage pop-up along with the photo fan pop-up for a couple cards here. This first one sending love, and then the second one an homage to one of his favorite board games. The postage pop-up die set is available now from our website, KarenBurniston.com, as well as from a lot of your favorite local and online retailers. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.